So in this video I'm going to show you how to get this plaid effect in a crochet blanket. It's a pretty quick project once you know the whole process of it. This is when I started. I'm almost finished with it. We're actually going to finish it together in this video. So let me show you how I got to this point. You are going to start with a chain, and the chain really just depends on you. Your chain is going to be the width of your blanket. So however wide you want your blanket to be, that's how far you'll chain. So I'm just going to do just a few chains here just to give you an example. And then once you get the width of your blanket, you're going to add 4 more chains to that. Okay. And the blanket, the body of the blanket basically consists of a mesh that you're going to make with double crochets and a chain 1. So to do this, we're going to start with our first double crochet, and we're going to put it in the 4th chain from the hook. So we're going to go back into the 4th chain from the hook. You're going to make a double crochet, and then you're going to chain 1. And you're going to continue that across this row, but you're going to skip the next chain and go into the next one after that. So we'll skip that one, we'll put our double crochet into the next one after that, and then chain 1, skip the next one, and go into the next one beside of that, chain 1, and just continue this, skipping the next chain and going into the next one. So in every other chain, you're going to put a double crochet plus a chain 1. So we'll skip that one and go into this one. Chain 1, and then our final one is going to go into the very first chain here. Now, depending on how many chains you put into your foundation row there, you may end up with an extra chain here at the end. You can either just skip that, or if you want to go ahead and put another double crochet chain 1 into that, it's not going to throw off the look of the blanket to do that. So once we have our first row done here, you see we've got this kind of mesh forming with a double crochet with a chain 1 space. So when we get to the end of the row, we are going to chain 3, chain 4. Turn your work, and then put a double crochet right into the top of the double crochet from the row below. Chain 1, and then your double crochet goes into the top, and you're just going to work your way back across the row, doing a double crochet, chain 1 into the top of each double crochet. Of my row here, and you see I've got this mesh, and so I'll just chain 4, turn, and then work back across, putting a double crochet, chain 1 to the top of each of those until I have my width of my color that I want. So in this one, what I have done, you can see here, is I changed colors every 4 rows. So what I did was 4 rows of red, and then I switched to the dark gray and did 4 rows of dark gray, and then back to the red, and just alternated that all the way down the width of my blanket. In this one, I got a little bit more complicated with it, and what I did was 4 rows of blue, then 2 rows of gray, then a single row of blue, a single row of yellow, and then repeated the process again. So 4 rows of blue, 2 rows of gray, single row of blue, single row of yellow, and then start it over again. Okay. However you want to do it is fine. You come up with your pattern. It works best if you use highly contrasting colors. So, you know, a darker and a lighter color. That way they'll stand out against each other better. So when I get to the end of my row, if I want to switch colors, what I did was just snipped this off, tied the new color to it, and then continued. So if it was time to change colors, what I did was I just cut a little 2-inch piece or so there, and then did an invisible join. But to do that, you take your new color, wrap it around your existing color, and tie just a little knot by looping it around, putting it back through, and tying it around the red. Then you're going to take the red one and tie it around the gray one. So you end up with something like this, where the red is tied to the gray, and then the gray is tied to the red. And then you take the opposite ends of those and pull them until the knots slide down up next to each other. Like that. And then you can just take your scissors and trim those tails off as close as you can. And you get a fairly unnoticeable join, especially when you're crocheting and you're dealing with a bunch of knots anyway, so. Then I just continue on. So I'm here at the end of the row, I'm gonna chain 4, turn, and then start putting my double crochet chain 1s into the top of each of those. And there is a little color variation there. It's not a seamless move from one color to the next, but you really don't notice it when it's in the edge of the blanket like that. So then I would just continue this way. Now, to get the plaid look, once you have your mesh completely knitted, your blanket has been completely, or not knitted, excuse me, once you have your mesh completely crocheted, you fasten off. You've got it crocheted to the length that you want your blanket to be. You will fasten off, and then you are going to weave through your mesh. So what I did was I just measured a piece of yarn that would reach all the way from one end of the blanket to the other, plus gave myself a little extra to add some fringe on either end. And then for each space that you're going to weave through, you're going to need 3 strands of yarn. So you see here, this has been woven through. There are 3 strands of yarn woven through together. So for each chain 1 space, you need to have 3 strands of yarn. So you'll just go across the row and count how many chain 1 spaces are straight across, and that's how many pieces of yarn you're going to have to cut. Now, you are also going to alternate the colors as you weave them. So you see here, I used the same pattern that I used when I crocheted the mesh. So I did 4 rows of crochet of each color. So then I'm going to do 4 rows of weave in the same color across the row. And you see here as you go through, in the red row then we have 4 rows of red, and when you weave that through the red row you really don't see them. Then I switched to the 4 rows of the gray, and it kind of stands out here. And then alternately in the gray row, the red weave stands out and the gray kind of blends in. And that's how you get that checkerboard plaid effect. For this one, I did the same thing, but remember I had a different pattern here. I had 4 rows of blue, 2 rows of gray, a single row of blue, and a single row of yellow. So that's how I weave through. I weaved 4 rows of blue. Let's look this way. This is the direction the pattern was going. 4 rows of blue, 2 rows of gray, a single row of blue, and a single row of yellow. And then continued the pattern across. So whatever pattern you crocheted the mesh, that's the same pattern you're going to use to weave your colors through. And that's how you get these. You see there's the checkerboard of yellow and gray, and then the blue squares. So let me show you how to weave those through. It is fairly simple. You are going to need a yarn needle with a large eye in it. And then you are going to take your 3 pieces, which I have cut here somewhere. There we go. And put them into the eye of the needle. Now I found with this is chunky yarn. With worsted weight yarn, I could take all 3 pieces of yarn and put them through the eye of the needle at once. For this chunkier yarn, I have to do them one at a time. So pull that through and then slide it to the end of the eye and hold it out of the way. And then get my next piece. And do it the same way. And then slide it to the end of the eye and hold it out of the way. And then get my 3rd piece of yarn. And once I have all 3 of them in there, I just pull the ends so that they are pretty much all the same length. And then we are ready to weave it through the mesh. My ends are a little tangled here. Get those untangled. Okay. So to weave it through the mesh, you simply alternate going over and under these vertical bars here. So you see with your mesh, we've got this hole, and then there's a bar, and then a hole and a bar. We're just going to start going under one bar and going over the next one, and then go under the next one and over the next one. And you're just going to weave in and out of those bars all the way down the length of the blanket. So then I just take my needle off, and then holding this in so that the pieces that I just wove through don't come back out again. Make sure it's the length that I want. I'm going to kind of just stretch this mesh a little bit because it tends to get bunched up as you are weaving down through. So make sure it's laying flat, and make sure I have enough at the end here with my 3 pieces, which it looks like one of them accidentally got pulled through, so I'm just going to pull it back up through. Make sure I've got all 3 of my strands here. Alright, so you have all 3 of your strands. Make sure they're actually pulled through. Okay. Then I'm just going to basically tie a knot around this last bar. So I'm going to just put it through and just tie these strands around themselves. Make a loop, pull it through there, and just fasten that off. And once you are all done, then you can lay your blanket out, straighten your fringe out, and take a pair of scissors and go through and trim your fringe off so it's all the same length, nice and even. And there you go. There's your final product. a plaid woven crochet blanket.